It was noontime today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace,
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about food when the power goes out, right? So things, things can get hairy. And so I kind of wanted to get back to the basics. We just did an episode on, how to turn the lights on when the power's out. Then we did how to find and store water. And now, back to the basics. Let's talk about food, right? Because food turns out like foundation of life kind of thing. It's one of those big ones, right? Like water and air, you need those. Um, so we're gonna break down to it about one, what you should be doing for your basics, but two, like what do you do when it like gets cold outside and it's winter time? We're gonna cover it all. But make sure this is your kind of thing. You like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. Yeah, let's jump right into it. So just real quick, Kevin, we always talk about a 2 week food storage should be the norm for everybody. I mean, obviously, people are like, oh, we need a year of food storage, and that's great. And we want you to get there. But like everybody should kind of have 2 weeks
Right.
worth of
Whether
food.
you're
Is
a
that
prepper or not.
doable?
Yeah.
Or is that even doable? Or what do you do in a normal pantry and without your long-term food storage or whatever? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, I think most people should at least have, a selection of canned foods, just basic stock of stuff that you use regularly, canned vegetables.
Yeah.
Um, One of the ones that I think a lot of people don't pick up because it seems gross is potted meat, right? That's what they call it down south. Canned meats, canned tuna fish, canned chicken.
Oh,
Those are
spam.
great things.
I know
Spam.
people had spam recipes for you
Ye
in the
Yeah,
past.
I was talking trash about spam and, I got all sorts of hate mail over it.
Mhm,
But,
mhm.
yeah, I'm not a fan of spam. But, I mean, anything like that. I mean, anything, canned stuff that you would normally use. Spam isn't on that list, but, who
Now it's
doesn't
not
like
on your list.
who doesn't like a tuna fish sandwich? Chicken salad sandwich, who doesn't like that? I mean,
Kevin,
that should
communists,
be
that's
stuff.
my
Yeah,
guess.
commies. That should be stuff that you have in your cabinet regardless. Um, Canned vegetables, I know I've got a stockpile for years on canned corn and canned green beans. I draw the line at canned asparagus. That just seems I haven't eaten it, I don't know, but it just seems gross.
Oh, my wife just bought a ton of asparagus plants, like, already, like,
Already growing?
just yeah, growing, but, like, they came, like, dried, over the you know what I mean, where they're just,
Mhm.
like, dry roots and you just drop them in, and, so, yeah, we're excited about that. Like, dude, like, hundreds of yeah, no, we got, like, rows, like, a 30-foot row of asparagus, so we're not messing around anymore.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, so one of the big things with that is you wanna have stuff that your family wants to eat, right?
Right.
So that's where they talk about, buy things in redundancy, like when it's on sale or when they have the buy one get one or whatever like that. You just buy the extra of your normal staples. It's cool that people want to eat fresh all the time, and that's how it should be. I love that life, but it's not everybody can go to the grocery store every 3 days. And obviously, if you have a big garden, then you don't have to worry. You got 2 weeks in the garden. We
Right.
could talk about that a little bit. But, buy things that you're going to eat. And like Kevin said, you could add pancake mix to that, would be a big, extender. I mean, honestly,
Right.
you can buy the big bag for $10 at Sam's Club. That's going to
Mhm.
be 2 weeks of breakfast right there.
Right. Oatmeal is another one that
Uh,
stores well. You know what I
if you
mean?
do
You get the
yeah,
big
if you do
containers of the oatmeal.
absolutely. If you do the crappy corn syrup, that stuff's like nothing. I mean, it's like $3 for the gallon jug or whatever at Sam's Club. That
Uh-huh.
that's no big deal. Um, Again, we all wanna be healthy, I get that, and you find a way to incorporate these things. It just takes a little more outside the
Right.
box to have long-term healthy options and maybe
Right.
just a little bit more money.
Hmm.
That's how it comes down to. Everything
Right.
is time, money, and like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Dried beans, dried rice, those are all great things that you can just stick it
Keep
in a
on the shelf
container and forget
forever.
about it. Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of those carry a long time.
Hmm.
Um, but even having an extra loaf of bread in the freezer or something, every time, maybe being able to bake bread, right? Maybe you
Right.
have the flour and the stuff where you're like, hey, I'll be able to bake 3 loaves of bread if things, go south. And then that'll extend our time, right? That way you're getting nice, fresh, healthy, good stuff.
Right.
And yet it's still
Right. And
something
if you store
preserved,
flour properly, you can store
right?
it for a long time. Same
A
with
long time.
sugar.
So let's get into it. So when people think survival and off grid, they're not thinking, "Oh, I have a pantry full of food." You guys were hoping for, well, what do I do when the power's not coming back on? Right?
Right.
It's
Right.
been 2 weeks,
2 weeks is great, but
and now I got a big problem. Right? As
mhm,
preppers and survivalists, that's the big, like, the scary question.
yeah. And the truth
What do
is,
I
if you're
do long term?
listening to a prepper podcast, you probably already have 2 weeks of food.
I hope so.
That's not your issue.
Right.
Um,
So let's jump into it. Yeah. What do we do, Kevin? How am I going outside my house and
mhm.
finding food?
Yeah. Well, one of the big ones that I think is overlooked by a lot of preppers is foraging.
Mm,
Um, and foraging can be tricky. It's
yes.
if you can't just like learn basic foraging, you know, on the fly, you know? And every place is different too, If you live in Alabama, it's going to be completely different type of foraging than in Minnesota or, Spain or Ireland.
Absolutely. So one of the big things, a lot of the local areas offer classes and
Mhm.
tours you can do, and it might not be like that local, right? Like they might not have a guy who does a class in your town, but you probably have one in the next county or something like that. Now, Kevin's in New York, and New York City, where people don't really think of foraging, to be honest. They might
Mhm.
think of dumpster diving. That's kind of
Yeah,
like foraging, but
it is. It's the
you
city
don't think
version.
of, yeah, it's the city version. But there's this guy, Wild Man Steve Brill. He actually runs classes, and you can find his website, and he gives tours. I checked, he's still doing it.
Yeah.
And there are tours scheduled right now that you can sign up for in New York, where he takes you to Central Park. They had one in Long Island he had coming up, and they go around Central Park and they basically put together a meal. But I understand we maybe don't all have time for, hey, I can't go do a foraging class. Although I got to say that's kind of a cool thing to do, especially if you do it local to you.
Right.
Now, he offers an app that you can put on your phone, and you just go through like by name, and he shows you a picture, what it looks like, how to cook it, and that kind of thing. There's a bunch of apps. There's ones where you can just take a picture of any plant and it tells you if it's edible. That's not him.
Mhm.
Um, but there's things out there that you can do, a bunch of cool apps that you can put on your phone.
Yeah.
And it might be a good idea. And I would say buy some paper books, because the really crazy preppers, the ones who think that there might be a cyber attack or an EMP, they might tell you that maybe your phone goes away.
Right. Maybe you don't have access to your apps.
So just checking that. You might want to keep
Yeah.
a hard paper book too. And actually, if you actually learn stuff, start going out and picking out some of these plants out of your backyard and
Mhm.
eating them and learn to recognize them. I just like add one or two to my repertoire, each year.
Mhm.
Like I'll be like, oh, that one. And then I'll just like pick up and eat them whenever I see them and be like, oh, yeah, that's one of my. And you hope that the dog wasn't out peeing on it earlier.
Right, right.
But, a little flavor, right? A little zest. A little zest keeps things exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the good things about, doing some foraging, getting started now is that if you accidentally eat something awful and make yourself sick, you can still go to the hospital. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The truth is that there's very few things that you can poison yourself with by eating them in your yard that you can't get straightened out with a doctor visit. You won't always have a doctor visit. Better to get sick now
Okay.
than, after the power goes out.
Kevin, I prefer not to get sick at all. I'm just saying.
I do that shit all to me myself all the time. Drink
You've
questionable
done.
water
I
or
seem to
do yeah.
recall a video where you sprayed yourself with homemade pepper spray.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't great.
So yeah, you make some questionable choices. I know. All right. So the next step would be maybe a garden, maybe growing
Right,
some stuff. Now
right.
you're a big
Now,
gardener, right?
yeah, I am a big fan of gardening, homegrown. Now, one of the things though is having the garden set up. You don't want to do the power goes out and oh, miraculously it happens right in the beginning spring.
Yes, that's the
All right,
best.
great. So now you can go plant your seeds. Where? You're gonna dig up your lawn? Like, do you
I
have
would dig up my
beds?
lawn.
Does your lawn have decent soil for growing stuff that's not grass?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of variables there. You know what I mean? If you're already doing a small garden, you can make a bigger garden pretty easily.
Yes.
You can switch over and upscale. You have the seeds ready. You have the even the raised beds. You have the potting soil. Maybe you have stuff set aside. You have your compost bin going. You're ready to go. You can upscale that garden.
Yes.
Especially if you have a basic experience growing some tomatoes, growing some lettuces, growing some vegetables, zucchinis and squash. But but you want to get started on something like that now. At least if you have the land to do it. If you're living in an apartment complex, it might be a little bit trickier, but we also did a show on guerrilla gardening, where you sneak in other people's property and grow your vegetables and
We
stuff in
did.
their property.
Yeah, I like that a lot. No, that's definitely a good way to do it is the guerrilla gardening because then you don't have to, remember we talked about like potatoes along the sidewalk, like you have
Yep.
the secret hidden. You guys know I like Rick Austin,
The secret garden of survival.
Secret Garden of Survival. He's awesome. And also you might know him as the host of Prepper Camp. Uh,
Hmm.
he also has the secret greenhouse of survival. Now, I've actually read through and a very big fan of the secret garden of survival. I've purchased the secret greenhouse of survival, but I haven't read all the way through it yet. I have to dig deeper into that one and find out if that's really going to be the trick. But I do know that I am a big fan, and he's got some great gardening ideas on that. Now, there's
Yeah,
a lot of
definitely check
things
out
like,
Rick Austin's books. He's
and
got some
there
great stuff.
he really does. He basically has it where it kind of takes care of itself, which is
Hmm.
nice. Like,
Yeah.
he's got they had him on he was actually on Doomsday Preppers back in
Hmm.
the day. And they have him going out with like 5-gallon buckets and just filling them with fruit and vegetables. And if you
Hmm.
can and preserve, you can have abundance for all year long. But
Right.
this takes time and setup. And his cool thing is you don't even recognize it as a garden. Like you look at it and it's just like, oh, that guy's yard. Somebody comes in and takes this guy's food storage and it doesn't matter. He's going to the backyard. He's still going to live, right?
Right.
He's got it
Right.
worked out. The cool thing too, there's a lot of plants, a lot of root vegetables, a lot of lettuces and things that will really carry on into the colder weather, into the fall.
Yeah, carrots and potatoes are great for that sort of stuff. You can dig them up almost any time of the year, and
And you're
if you
good
can
to
get into the
go.
ground, sometimes you get frozen down there pretty good, but
No, absolutely. So the next thing I would say, so we have gardening, we have foraging. Um, Kevin, what do we do when it starts to get cold out though? What
right,
happens when my garden?
there's no garden, nothing coming up anymore. It's too late
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
year.
I guess we could extend it with the greenhouse, right?
Yep.
And you could do cold frames.
Hmm.
Again, those things let you start early and they let you end late, but then it kind of runs out.
Right.
And what do we do?
Right. And if you have to build a greenhouse on the fly, you can do it with some clear plastic and some PVC pipe, some whatever you've got around. You can make a little greenhouse, pretty
My
quickly.
plan
It's
is
gonna
to
look
make
like
it
trash, but you know what
right,
I mean?
right.
Who cares?
My plan is to make a cold frame out of the car. Just use the
Mm.
windshield and kind of,
And line your vegetables up on the
up along
dashboard.
the dash. Yeah. That's how I imagine it. That's how
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
in my mind's eye. All right. So anyway, so what do we do when it gets cold and those things aren't grown out of the ground? Or what happens when things go bad in the wintertime? Right.
Right,
So,
right.
all right. So number one, the first thing everyone's like, well, I'm gonna go hunting. Are you gonna go hunting, Kevin?
Yes, everybody's gonna go hunting.
Yeah,
Everyone that owns a gun, even people that have never hunted in their lives are gonna go hunting. During, during the Great Depression, 80% of the white-tailed deer were gone, just disappeared, you
that's
know?
crazy.
Just poaching and hunting. Because the thing is, in a situation like that, you're not worried about, like, repopulation, you're not concerned about, "Well, oh, I only get, 8-point bucks and above," you're
Yeah.
not doing nobody
No,
gives a shit about
that's
that,
not your
you know?
rule.
No, you shoot little baby, you shoot anything, and
Dude,
everyone will be doing that.
it
So,
just takes one buck. You can have one buck with like 30 does out there, and he's like, I
uh
got it covered. Don't worry about it.
mhm.
That
Yeah, I mean,
happens.
population will bounce back eventually, but
Right.
it's not gonna be easy to find after the first, maybe
No,
month.
because you don't
They're gonna
have
be
30
hard.
does at that
Right.
point, and that's the
Mhm.
problem. I was gonna
Exactly.
make a reference to rural communities and what people do, how it only takes one buck to, but anyway, um, moving right along. The So we're hunting, but I think if you think outside the box a little bit and you're like, hey, squirrels and rabbits, right? Everyone thinks deer. I'm gonna go get deer.
Right. Right.
But now when we add squirrels and rabbits and maybe raccoon or something, possum, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know possum, people actually, if you mix the possum with the deer, you can kind of like really stretch it a little bit and it adds that fat and nice
Yeah.
stuff. Maybe possum and rabbit we get together. I don't really know what the best option is. You got to watch, some Duck Dynasty maybe for the best recipes on that. I know they have
Yeah.
books on squirrels and whatever, but
Yeah, raccoons are tricky, man. It's really a lot of trash, and I haven't eaten raccoon.
people
I
eat
don't depend
rats.
on it.
Rats are
You
the
can
big
eat
one in the
anything
city,
really, right?
It's
Yeah.
hey,
But,
I'd
I mean,
recommend cooking
raccoons, you
it.
wanna boil that and then dump the water out before you start cooking it.
Yeah, better you than me. That's what I
Yeah.
would tell you. But all right, so moving right along, so hunting is big. The more unconventional you're willing to go, I think the more you're going to be able to reap and yield on that.
Yeah, and I
The
would
next,
recommend having, birdshot for your shotgun. 22 is great for hunting rabbit. Birdshot might be better for hunting squirrel and things like that, though.
all right, when there's home, or learn how to aim. I mean, I
Yeah, there
recommend
you
some
go.
time at
You
the
could do that.
range. Recommend some time at the range. Uh, I'm reading some prepper book now, and the girl's like making headshots with her slingshot on a squirrel.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not sure that's really, I mean, that girl practiced apparently. They
Yeah.
didn't say that, but
I
I'm
mean,
telling you, if
it's
she's making
possible, and
headshots
I
on a
know I've
squirrel,
seen people do it, but I mean, you really gotta
that's
have
the
some
same
time.
person who's doing the bow and arrow and shooting it with their toes, and that's that guy,
Yeah.
right? Um, so the next thing that's going to put you a step ahead, and again, everything, it's kind of like business ideas. The more outside the box you think, the better, the less people are trying it. So the more
Right.
it's going to be open to you. So the next level, I think, is trapping.
Mhm.
And trapping turns out like snares are freaking awesome. Now,
Yeah.
snares are illegal for trapping most of the time, but I feel like it's because they work. They're like, oh, well, it's an
Right.
unfair advantage.
Yeah.
I think they also make the argument that it's maybe a little inhumane because they're like, oh, my head's being choked out. It kind of sucks. Because
You
people
gotta
imagine their head being choked out would
right.
kind of suck. But I feel like if you held my leg in a trap and left me there for 20 hours and I knew I was going to die, I'd be unhappy too. It's
Yeah.
not just the choking out. Um, One of the big ones for squirrels is they tie a snare and just let it hang over the branch. what you want to look for is trees that are active with squirrels. You don't want to just pick, oh, there's a tree, squirrel's going to go in it. That's what it
Right.
works. It's not really, you want to look where the squirrels are going. Now, obviously, it's going to be something with acorns or things like that,
Mhm.
things that squirrels are excited about. But I got to say, I've seen people catch 6 squirrels in one tree. Like,
Yeah.
they just keep you can get them with and there is a lot of squirrels. You think, "Oh, I have 2 squirrels in my backyard," but you probably have more than that.
There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah,
There's a
I've got
lot.
my wife goes out every morning and throws peanuts for the squirrels,
Yeah,
and once word got out, every morning I go outside, there's like 10 squirrels just in the front yard, like, watching the front door, waiting for her to come throw some peanuts. So, I mean, that's all they're
and
already primed to show up every
absolutely.
morning.
And I think one of the things I had read was they were saying that basically when a squirrel gets taken out, the other one is coming for his stash.
Mm,
Like, they know about it,
okay.
like, they know, "Oh, that guy's been storing them over there," and
Mhm,
they're just coming to steal it. So if you catch the one guy, somebody else is moving in and so on, and that
mhm,
keeps, like, fulfilling. So that's something. Another thing with traps, there's a bunch of books out there on trapping, and I would say trapping is a skill you learn. We did do an episode on that. That was actually in New York, one of the bigger things that I always got annoyed that, like, New York makes you do an archery class for hunting. They make you do a rifle class. They make you do a trapping class. They're all separate classes for your permit to or license to hunt, right? Um, but they never taught you anything. Like, all the classes were like, "Don't shoot somebody. Don't shoot somebody. Don't shoot," which is
right.
good. I mean, that's important.
Mhm,
But they also it would be cool if you were like, "Hey, you need to keep your mouth shut when you're out with the deer. You need to not put on the cologne or smoke the cigar while you're out hunting the deer."
right.
It's weird though, because you watch those movies with the 50s and stuff, and they're chugging beer and smoking cigars, and I don't know how they do it, but I haven't been able to do that.
Mhm.
I actually haven't tried smoking a cigar while I'm hunting, but maybe I should.
Maybe you should
Maybe
give
it'll
it a
still
go.
be enjoyable. I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't know what I'll find. But with that, my point is experience. You realize, like, I gotta say, when I started hunting, I found I had to be further back from the animal because I'm too fidgety and noisy. And so I just had to learn to be a better shot, right? So that I
Right.
can be far back that he's not going to hear me or smell me. Learning things about being downwind or upwind, those things matter a lot. And you have to, be aware of what's going on there. So maybe start trapping, get into it now while things are good, and then you'll be ready when things go bad.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
And again, there's books on everything,
Yes. One of
Have
my
them.
favorites, yeah, Ragnar's 10 Best Traps is
Mhm,
awesome. I know that was available on Amazon, that's where I bought it. Uh, his are less conventional, like, more outside the box.
mhm.
He also has one on man trapping, I'm just saying, that might be
Alright.
something you're into.
Yeah.
Uh, but they have a lot of cool things. A lot of them are snares and deadfalls, but also you would do yourself a lot of good if you went bought a lot of foot traps over at, Gander or
Mhm.
Dick's or whatever. Most places, there's no issue going and buying those if you don't have a trapper permit or whatever. They don't care. Most of them, I don't know, every state, California, they probably don't even sell that shit. They'd be like, no, no, that's wrong. But I don't know what y'all do out in California, but there's things like that. Another thing that people never think about in my mind is fish.
Right.
One, fishing is awesome, but two, fish trapping is awesome. So you guys have seen those minnow traps that are like made out of chicken wire where it like has a cone that funnels in, and so they can go in, it starts at a big hole and then it becomes a little hole, and then
Right.
they're trapped in the inside. You could do that on a bigger level with, in a stream, right?
Mhm.
They take rocks. It used to be a big Indian thing where they would take rocks and make like a big V on a flowing river, and they would like funnel them into one section. So like water's still passing through, but the fish are the bigger things are funneled
Mhm.
in and ended up in like a small pool where then they can go either drain the pool out or they can
Just smack those
spear
fish up
them,
on the
smash a
stick.
rock on them, whatever Kevin does. Now, again, all these trapping things, snares, a lot of these, they're called a weir, I believe is the trap where it's a V and you put it in there.
Right.
But um, most of those are illegal all the time, but they're not illegal when the world ends.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
saying, if the government isn't coming to help you, they're probably not coming to yell at you about your trap.
Yeah, a
Just
lot
saying.
of people I think a lot of people in survival situations overlook fishing, especially if you don't have like a pond or a lake right on your property. You don't even think
Yeah,
about it. But I think that you might be able to fish a little bit longer than you're able to hunt. You might be able to find fish longer than you're able to find, white-tailed deer. Um,
absolutely.
but uh so I wanted to also talk about some of the long-term food storage. I know a lot of you guys have gotten some of the different stuff, and there's a lot of different companies that you can check out. Um, Emergency Essentials is an interesting one. They do like a fruit and veggie kit where it's all like
Okay.
freeze dried fruits and vegetables. So there's like a what is it 283 servings for 235 bucks. That's you know uh for Patriot 3 month supply of food is 697. Um, Ready Wise, they have a 3 month supply for $545. My Patriot Supply is another one, and they have deals. All these companies have deals all the time.
They have deals all the time. My Patriot Supply was 3 months, 2,000 calories a day for 497. I gotta say, that's pretty cool because if you figure that's three people for a month, you've knocked out for most families, you've knocked out your 2 week food supply. I mean, honestly, hey, if you have a family of six, 497, you got your 2 week food supply, right?
Right.
So my dog is whining. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
So yeah, but
It's
I
a
mean,
desperate time
regardless,
here.
with all these things, do a little bit of research because some of these companies will say it's a 6 month supply, but that's 1,000 calories a day. Like you're already
Yes.
at half rations.
Right.
Some of them just taste like straight shit. You know,
Ooh,
be honest with you, some of them are fucking awful,
Kevin,
and
such harshness.
you might want to like do a little bit of research. You don't want to be eating cardboard for 6 months at half calories.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
and when you
So
see those 6 month supply, that's for one person. That's not, your
that's not your
family
whole
for 6
family?
months. Right.
Yeah.
So you need
We
to
have a
just
year of food supply. I bought a year, Kevin.
for me,
Bought a year.
you guys are on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I will say, I mean, I know I've been a big proponent of this for a long time is buying a big bag of rice keeps bellies full.
Right.
It's not protein, but you don't have your kids crying that they're starving to death
Hmm.
when you have 50-pound bag of rice. And a 50-pound bag of rice is pretty cheap and
Mm.
goes a long way. And I
Plain
gotta
rice
say,
again.
if
Yep.
you when you look at like the 30-year shelf life food storage, you're bang for the buck. You're actually can do really good going and buying the pancake mix at Sam's Club and throwing it out every 2 years and for all
Uh-huh.
the calories. And then it goes, past that. So just think about that. You could maybe do good, but if you're like a set it and forget it kind of guy, then that's where the long term becomes huge, right?
Right.
I did put a link in the show notes that's going to get you guys, discounts and good things and help support the show, that kind of stuff. But you need to you need to plan ahead. This is the stuff you buy beforehand. The foraging books are something that you buy before the lights go out, right?
Right.
Um, going and getting familiar with what's in your yard. And honestly, sometimes when I'm out cutting the lawn, I'm like, hey, there's something useful over here. And I start leaving a bigger area and you let that one thing thrive, in your property.
Right.
And then they end up escalating. Like somebody I think must have planted raspberries, blackberries, something in on my property. And when I got there, there was like a bush, and I just kept like cutting around it with the lawnmower instead of running it over like I would normally do.
Mhm.
It took my wife yelling at me a few times. But I mean,
It's good.
after
We
that,
gotta trim it every once in a while,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
but after I learned the technique of driving outside,
Uh-huh.
because I'm like, it's all got to be the same height.
Right, right.
She'll tell you how I think, and she tells everyone. And but you need to when you start letting it grow. Now I have like 50 bushes, and it's like a 20 by 20,
Right.
section of berry bushes, and it was
Yeah, I
just because I
planted
left it
3
alone.
3
Yeah.
raspberry bushes about 10, 15 years ago, and now I've got a huge section of the yard
That I
is
mean,
raspberries.
fruit and nut trees are so huge, like game changers on your property. If you're in the South, think nut trees. I don't
Mhm.
know how well they do all in the North and stuff, but we can throw pecan trees and things like that. And I mean, if you realize the calories that you get out of nuts, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And you can really, they're so calorie dense and protein, and you can really up your stuff. But if you learn things like, hey, I have black walnuts, hey, I can boil that, or acorns, hey, I can, figure out how to get that. That's not something you want to figure out after the lights go out.
Right, right. If you have I have a bunch of oak trees on my
Right.
property, and acorns taste terrible.
Yes.
If you know, if you
Y-
treat them properly, though, they're not bad. You can make,
They're not bad.
flour out of them. You can make a lot of stuff out of them.
Right.
But I mean, one of the things that you should really do is go around your property and identify the plants and the trees that you have on your property already, and
Yeah,
think about what you might want to add. You know, plant an apple
exactly.
tree, plant a couple of apple
I
trees.
mean, if I was in
You
New
know,
York like Kevin, there would be a lot of apple trees on my
hmm
property because that's something, actually, my
it
property
grows
that I
well.
left
I
in New
imagine.
York, I think I had 6 apple trees.
Hmm
Ask me how many apples I ate out of my tree in the entire
The
7 years I
squirrels,
lived
man,
there.
squirrels get them before they're
Freaking
ready.
squirrels, man, all the time. I would say one of the secrets of the pros is to plant garlic around the base of your fruit trees.
Hmm
That really deters the deer.
Right.
Not so much the squirrels,
Squirrels
but
don't give
the
a shit.
deer. Squirrels didn't give a shit. Those you just got to get out there with the gun, start popping heads. I'm just
That's it.
Kevin, that's horrible. But just make sure that you're eating the squirrels when
Hmm
you're shooting them in that. But maybe that's the thing, though, right? Maybe your garden, you're like, oh, that damn rabbit in my garden all the time. Well, turns out that rabbit could be dinner. And we
Edible.
didn't even touch on livestock.
Hmm
Kevin, livestock are a whole other game changer, but obviously it
Right.
depends where you live and what you can do. Now, you guys have heard me push, and I do practice what I preach with rabbits.
hmm
I have a lot of rabbits, and there's a lot of rabbits in my freezer.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of cool. That's a great meat source that's cheap and easy. I had bought a book, like Feeding Meat Rabbits for Free or something like that. And it was about all the different things growing in your yard. I got to say, if you have pet animals like that, I said pets, but if I think with your pets too, if you can find out what these animals eat that grows around where you are and start incorporating that. Like dock. We use that like bitter dock they call it.
hmm
My rabbits love that, right? We have sweet gum trees everywhere. I can't get rid of them. Like they're the ones that drop these like little piney balls that are crazy. But I can throw in branches and my rabbits are like, yes. And, they lay off the feed because they're down for eating all the other stuff.
Right.
And you can make it where they're either free or almost free to raise. And that's the thing. Like, same thing with chickens and free range and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
Um,
that would be another, thing to start ahead of time. Chickens are great. Eggs are a great source of protein. And like you said, if you have them out, if you let them free roam, they can do most of most of their foraging on their own.
Exactly.
Very little
Um,
food. I've
they
got a
yeah.
fox in the neighborhood that's been snatching up everybody's chickens, but mine are safe. Mine are safe. My
Yeah.
my wife has like a murder of crows that live in the yard, and every time they start squawking, she goes out there and chases the fox off again.
Well, that's
He
it. You
keeps
just gotta
showing
be
up,
on
but
top of it, right?
yeah.
And can I recommend a thermal scope?
Mm.
Maybe not in New York, but the rest in free America.
In free America, you can
In
do
free
almost anything
America,
you want. Yeah.
you could do whatever you like. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if that's right. I'm sure there's certain times you can shoot foxes or something. I would never do it. I read in a movie.
Read about it in the book once.
Read about it in a book and saw it in a movie, something. One of the things, like, so the rabbits, I know with mine, my biggest thing is butchering takes time, right?
Yeah.
So it is a thing. I watch these videos and people are like, yeah, I just shake the guts, they come right out of the rabbit. I don't know about any of that. Mine, it takes a minute.
Yeah, it
um
takes some work.
so butchering's the effort on mine. I would say I could have 3 times the amount of meat in my freezer, uh at a minimum, of what I do if I was more on top of it and faster. But I'm still butchering a lot of rabbits and doing. And like I said, now that I'm supplementing their feed with the different you know stuff that's growing in the yard, it makes it a lot cheaper and a lot easier to do.
Mhm.
So that's something to be aware of. I do find it tricky to find people who sell rabbits that aren't the same people I bought rabbits from before, and trying to bring in new life and fresh whatever, so they're not all inbred and whatever. I don't know how much that's a big deal. I know they talk about illness and stuff like that comes with too much inbreeding or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's a thing. But we do good with it. I like them. So the easy thing, remember the easy out, is just buy some long-term food storage. My Patriot Supply, sponsor of the show. Put it in the show notes. Got a link for you. But otherwise, I would say stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week.